Hi guys, I'm Arjun Radhakrishnan. I play Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam in Rocky Boys. Welcome to another episode of Crew Cut. And today we have the production designer of Rocket Boys, Meghna Gandhi. She is an award-winning production designer. She's worked on films like Man Marziyan, Pink, and one of my most favorite films, Manorama 6 Feet Under, which I just found out before this interview that she was the production designer on that film. Hi, Meghna.
Hi, Arjun.
So we'll start with the basic question. What is a production designer?
Well, the textbook term of production design is somebody who's responsible for the visual concept of showcasing a story. Okay. But I personally feel a production designer is somebody who can envision the director's thoughts and bring that to life in form of sets.
What's the difference between a production designer and an art director?
As a PD is responsible for the overall look of the show, and art director is pretty much her first in command. So my art director is somebody who will work side by side with me in helping design the set, design the concept, but then he is somebody who will actually get the work done. Getting into construction, fabrication, dealing with the junior staff and getting it done. His speciality is while he's converting the miniature to an actual live set, there will be a lot of challenges. There are a lot of little details that we've missed out putting in a miniature. But there when we go live on set, he might say that, oh, this distance doesn't look right to me visually. So he's the one who will actually use his judgment and make those alterations.
Right. So what are the different aspects of production design?
I think mainly understanding the script, understanding the director's vision, and in the given limitations, in the given timelines, in the given budget, to achieve it to the best of its ability. That's like the biggest thing. And yeah, like you said, furniture, prop, color, texture, all those I feel are the smaller element that obviously plays a very important role, but it is not one of the key aspects of production design. The understanding of what is required by the director, keeping in mind the producer's limitations is the key thing.
Okay. Who are the people in your team? Like, what are the different?
So the main person is the art director. Right. He's my second in command for most of the things. Right. Then we have a set designer.
Okay.
Who'll help me and the art director. We'll give him references. We'll sit on the script and we'll design a set on one of the 3D mediums like AutoCAD or a 3D SketchUp or something. We'll design a sketch which kind of makes it easier for me to tell the director what I think of. What are my perception of the set.
Right.
And then we have set dresser, set decorator.
Okay.
If there's an office that we are doing, so she's somebody who'll kind of put together a list of what are the elements, props, furniture, furnishings, electronics, what all will be part of that particular setup.
Right.
And then we have a set dresser who'll help the set decorator dress the set. And then we also have a graphics person who'll actually he'll kind of design an appropriate painting that'll go as one of the main props, or then you have certificates, you have trophies, you have a lot of these things that will be part of that particular setup.
Right.
And then we also have an on-set person who will kind of ensure that once the frame is set, minor things like there's a flower vase jutting out of the actor's head or something. So, she'll kind of make those tweaks, alterations. And of course, we have carpenters, painters, molders, artists, illustrators, tapists, fabricators, metal welders, fabricators, without whom we can't really.
Right. Who decides how much time we need for a particular set to be built?
That's where the art director,
I'm assuming.
His views are very important, because a lot of times I may say that, okay, this set might take 2 days. Right. But then he gets into the logistics of it and he'll be like, no, this location is this far. My tempos won't reach there on time. The big tempo will be at the parking lot. I'll have to then get a smaller tempo and get everything. So that's going to cost me half a day. So I'll need like a day extra for something. So, this is just one of the issues, but there could be many of these factors that need to be considered before you calculate number of second days.
Can I say like how a first AD runs the the set
Absolutely.
for the day. Is that what an art director
Absolutely,
also does?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's get into pre-production. How do you read the script?
My personal preference is reading it in one go,
Right.
because then it's easier to understand the emotion graph, the character built up. A lot of times when you're reading it for the first time, you tend to forget character names and stuff. So
course.
as in when you keep taking breaks, you have to keep thinking, oh, this one was this one was this. So it's just easier. It helps understand the story better. I'll talk about production design. So I kind of make a mental note of the setups and the scope of work that I have
Would that,
in that film.
That'll happen in the first reading? Like, do you
Yeah,
allow
kind
yourself?
of. Yeah, because a lot of times the scenes are self-descriptive.
Right.
So, sometimes when there's a description of, oh, what's happening, there's a gathering or there's a event, or this is the kind of college that they're entering, this is the kind of house. So there will be a little bit of description, and that kind of helps you gauge the quantum of work. And obviously it's at a very primarily stage, but it does kind of give you an idea for your personal scope of work also. A lot of times there have been great scripts, but it's not challenging enough for you to work on it because it doesn't motivate you to create something that you haven't.
Does the cinematographer come into play when it comes to your scope of work? I'm just, as a layman, I'm just asking. Now we are in this room. There's a scene playing out in this room. Tomorrow, the director and the cinematographer decides that, okay, we need to use just half of this room.
Right.
Or we're not going to expose this part of. Am I assuming that you're going to set up the entire space, or that?
No, that's actually a cinematographer's point of view also, because
Correct.
he is the one who can kind of help you with, Meghna, you know what, let's not make the entire set. Let's give me 3 walls and it'll be good. Or sometimes just give me 1 wall and we should be good to go.
Right.
Give me 1 big wall and give me a floating wall for the reverse axis. It's
Right.
okay. So yeah, a lot of times cinematographers also play a very important role in the size and quantum of set that we are building.
Going back to what you were saying about reading the script, you start to get images or logistics or things like that as you're talking it through. So do you present those ideas then to a director?
So normally what happens is they give you the script, they ask you to read it, and they'll ask you to come back with your thoughts on the script. And that's when you meet the director, you share your thoughts, because he wants to understand your point of view. Obviously, he's written the script with a certain mindset, but that's when you also know that how your thoughts are matching the director's thoughts. If you're saying something totally different from what the director had in mind, could work in both ways. It could work in your favor. So after the initial meeting with the director and vibing on the right note, then we reread the script. So the entire team will do a script reading. There'll be one person who will be making notes on the location breakdown, the sub-location breakdown. Right. Then there'll be one person who will be chalking out characters.
Right.
There'll be one person who will be only writing down action props. So,
sorry, what's an action prop?
Action prop is, say, a scene where somebody comes and hands over a document to you. Okay. So that document becomes an action prop.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So that's an important document. On a set, I do not get anything approved by the director, but that particular action prop has to be approved, has to be seen and approved by the director before we use it in the film. So then we start doing our breakdowns, basis scene, basis setup, indoor, outdoor, day, night, because it helps us understanding the use of practicals in that particular setup, lighting and practicals. Because I know if it's a night scene, the DOP will want working practicals.
Right, correct.
So post breakdown, we get into referencing. Mm-hmm. We start making our mood boards. We start collecting samples. Generally, particular scene needs a lot of furnishing. Then we start building our bank with a lot of fabric swatches, flooring samples, color samples. And then we present it to the director.
Right. Tell me about how do you find solutions to conflicts with the director and with the cinematographer?
Conflicts could be with all departments.
Right.
It's just about, at the end of the day, Arjun, we have to see what works best for the show.
Of course.
A simple example I'll give you. This last schedule of Rocket Boys that we did, we had a lot of furniture that we needed. There were a lot of conference rooms that were to be shot, right? There was a solution that came from Nikhil sir, which said, again, nobody is right or wrong in this whole thing. But he mentioned that, why don't you buy one entire set of office furniture and we just change the color or we change the polish and we reuse it for 6 setups. Okay. He had the producer's hat on and he was talking what works for him. Okay. He kind of convinced Abhay for it, and then Abhay came to me and I was like, Abhay, you're telling me that I have to give you 6 different looks with the same furniture, just changing colors.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Right.
I agree that particular setup, say it's going to cost me 100 rupees.
Yeah.
The solution I have is going to cost you 120 rupees, but it's worth putting that 20 rupees because I'm going to hire 6 different sets of furniture for all 6 setups.
Right.
I understand. At the end of the day, if Nikhil sir would have said that, no, I have only this much and this is all you're going to get, then would be the second solution where I would be like, okay, you know what? Let's get half rental and purchase half.
Right.
Luckily, it didn't get to that, and Abhay was convinced, and we did end up renting 6 setups. But so these kind of things happen on a daily basis.
Right.
You have conflicts on a daily basis. Every day you walk on a set and there's a new challenge. And you have to just learn how to overcome it.
What's your relationship with the cinematographer like?
Because
you all are deciding.
It has to be very, very cordial. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of times when the director will leave it to us, to both of us to decide.
Exactly.
He'll just give a broader spectrum saying that, okay, I'm okay with any shades of blue. But to sit together and pick the right shade of blue that will suit this particular setup is between me and the DOP. So for us to have that understanding of complementing each other, I know my set is not going to look good without his lighting.
Of course.
Also, it's very important. I've realized over the years working with several DOPs, how important is it for a production designer to have lights as part of the set. The more practicals I give him within the set, which can be lit up, it just makes his work easier. He doesn't have to bounce off lights from weird angles to ensure that the actor's face is lit up or this particular prop is getting lit.
Correct.
How do you manage the set design with keeping these kinds of realities in mind, how far the actor needs to move, where the director will be putting cameras and lighting, versus functionality and mood?
I'll give you an example with Jim. We were shooting at Sophia's College. We had a desk. It was a classroom setup. We had a desk and a chair ready. A day prior, Abhay is there with Jim for rehearsals, and they figured that, this table is too small for the kind of action that Jim had in mind. He enacted the scene. After the rehearsals, we realized that, this table is too small. We need to get a table double the size. So, there is a lot that needs to be taken care of at the last minute, and you have to be prepared.
In your head, you don't abuse that actor?
No.
Why the heck
We're used to it. No.
Only me, definitely, 100%.
He ended up sitting on one of our wet
paint
for furniture.
My blue track pants. First time I was wearing them had this giant black lights on the backside.
But again, that was a setting day. They weren't supposed to be there that day.
I was watching the 5th episode last night.
Okay.
And I was amazed by the airport sequence. Now, we know that was shot in a set.
Right.
The VFX comes in.
Played an important role.
And now where does that leave you and your connection with the VFX artist? Where does that come in?
So we did have the VFX supervisor on set. And even before we made it, we told him that, we have certain budget constraints and I cannot extend my wall beyond 30 feet. And initially it was supposed to be just one glass wall. As we got closer to shooting, Nikhil sir suggested that, there's this wall lying there. Why don't we bring it here? We make a little extension. And so it was all last minute, very organically done. that particular setup, because we were really struggling. That was one of the last setups. We were struggling. Like everyone was tired, trying to push and kind of make things work out finally. But so I very well remember airport being such an important scene, such a, emotion wise, that's like Homi's last scene. And his last conversation with Mrinalini, with Pipsy, that the telephone booth, all of it. So it was definitely as per the VFX requirement. Like, they had given us specification of minimum what size wall we would need, what's the distance. Again, the DOP telling us the distance that we need to keep. It was a rain sequence, so we had to, kind of maintain those certain protocols. And we had a basic ground area of, say, 20-30 feet where we had placed our furniture.
Right.
For the rain, do you have to set the rain up?
We don't have to set the rain up, but we have to ensure that there is provision for the rainwater to flow. The entire set can't be flooded. So we have to create the tank below. And of course, ensure that the window panes are silicone, so that there's no rainwater coming in. Because it was a huge wall. The glasses are normally 8 feet by 4 feet. So there will be multiple pieces that have been joined together. So the water can't be dripping out of the cracks. When there's a rain sequence, the treatment of the window is different. You have to work a little extra to ensure that it's not normally constructed. It's all glued and silicone.
Let's come to the most important question now, budget. Because now you said Nikhil sir gave you an extra wall. And he said, okay, I have 100 rupees, buy an entire office setup and we'll reuse it.
Right.
Imagine if Nikhil sir did not give you that extra wall.
So when I first read the script of Rocket Boys, we had the EP asked me, in your, like a ballpark, what is the
budget?
What do you think should be the budget for art?
Are we allowed to discuss the number?
No, I'm not giving you the number. But I took 2 days to actually put together a list of locations and roughly put numbers next to each setup. I had a number in mind, which I gave him. The actual budget in which we did Rocket Boys was 10% of the number that I
That's how Actors Fees also decided.
10%?
10% is a great...
You made it look incredible in that case.
What was that figure?
No. Hey.
Okay, what goes through your mind when it comes to a figure like 10%?
So when budgets are low, it always works better to work in reverse. You give me a number.
Okay.
Basis that number, I decide how much of set can we make in this. Like, itne mein itna hi milega. वो वाली बात आ जाती है. So 2 factors. सबसे पहले budget कम होगा, तो first thing we do is we go on a live location versus a set. Because that saves money, right? You're not building, you're not spending money in building walls, you're spending money in dressing up the location.
Right. And it's your duty to find the locations?
No, it's not my duty. We do have location managers. So finding location doesn't fall under...
A location manager doesn't fall under production?
No. Okay. So we go to a live location. So that way you're straight away bringing it down by 40% or 50% by not constructing. And then you dress it up. Or sometimes, even if you're making a set, you make a smaller set. That's when the cameraman also helps in kind of helping you do some cheat shots. This one time we did a very interesting thing where instead of making 4 walls like this, we made 4 walls with a gap, right? So we didn't construct this, this bit of the walls, but we shot in opposite axis where you could see the depth, but you never really needed to see the walls. So that way you cheat and you kind of figure out a jugaad for everything.
Let's discuss some of your other films. Man Marziyan. Man Marziyan is very rich in its color palette and the tones that you've used. How did you arrive at that?
Couple of things. The characters, madly, deeply in love. Lot of passion, Punjabi, the free-spirited nature of theirs. Taapsee's character was very like, kar lungi, dekh lenge, very bindas. Vicky and Taapsee's character, the city, the vibe, their life. The first half is all about their love story. The world revolves around them. And when you're in love, you only see colors.
Right.
That was the main thought behind bringing in those colors. And plus Punjab, loud, bold,
Right.
Amritsar. It wasn't very difficult actually to incorporate colors in a city like that, because whatever we did organically when we went to the market to buy props. So I'll tell you one interesting thing about Man Marziya. I think it's the only film where we have only carried our personal belongings and reached the city. Every single thing was sourced
from this.
locally.
Okay.
And that is why the film ends up having the local flavor.
Right. Let's talk about Pink. Now, Pink is a very hard-hitting, gritty film set in Delhi. The mood's different. The characters are more serious, not playful. There's nothing playful in the film.
Right.
How did you work on the look of that film?
I think it was very important to capture the mindset and essence of the city.
Right.
If you see the houses, each girl has its own corner with their own character, the background that they're coming from, and the profession that they are in. You know, it kind of reflects all of that, while their living room is just like a common playground,
Right.
chirpy, cheerful, and right across them. So these guys are in an apartment, and right across them is Mr. Bachchan's house, which used to supposedly be a very nice home when his wife was there, and after his wife passing away, we've tried to make these tiny, minute change in details where the flower vases are bare, like, you know, there won't be any flowers anymore, or dining tables will be without the tablecloths. Even on his sofa, instead of having this whole set of cushions, we've kind of just thrown one or two random cushions, you know, because a single person who's sad, who's given up his profession, he's still grieving his wife's death, is not somebody who's going to ensure that the place he lives in is prim and proper and things are in its correct place.
Right.
And again, coming to the boys' place, which is, you know, complete opposite. Even their props, the wall frames that we had, pictures hanging up in their room, were of guns. You know, to kind of just somewhere reflecting the mentality and mindsets. Also the fact that we can do anything. You know, we are allowed, we can do anything, and the whole scenario that happened.
How do you balance the need
Accuracy.
for accuracy and authenticity, like what you're saying, with artistic liberties also, and also just availability of things?
You know, sometimes you do get things that look great, but when you get into functionality of it, so the basic problem with period shows is you'll get vintage things, but you don't want those vintage things to look vintage. You want those vintage things to look new for that
time
period, right? I can't have a telephone that looks old. It's an old design telephone, but it shouldn't be looking old. It should be looking brand new at that point. Homi is somebody who could afford a new phone, or Vikram is somebody who could afford a new radio. So we can't have like chipped radio, broken radio and stuff like that. So sourcing those things, and especially the pandemic, really kind of made it very, very difficult and challenging to source. Especially the first season. It was really difficult to pull through a lot of things.
How did you use the production design to give us an insight into their characters and their moods and their ambitions?
So I will again use Rocket Boys as example, where we had Homi and Vikram. Homi being this modern person, always looking for innovation, you know, somebody who welcomes change in his life, in all mediums. And Vikram, who's a very traditional rooted person, always want things back to its roots, you know, earthy. So right from color palette, mood, textures, like his was more khadi, Homi was more silk. You know, Vikram is more earthy, like you have your rusts, you have your browns, you have your creams, you have your beige. Homi is like grays, blues. So there's a lot of contrast between the characters, and which should reflect in their costumes, in their homes, in their surroundings, in the props that they are using. Like, so if you see Homi, we've always given him leather files versus Vikram, who's got like cardboard files, you know. So basic material, difference of material, what would a Vikram choose versus what would a Homi choose? And that kind of helps build it. I also feel that it's easier for the actors also to kind of reflect to the surrounding, to reflect with their setup as well as things that they're holding.
So we were speaking about when you have to design a place which is not a familiar culture to you.
So I'll tell you what I did for Mehrangir. So I had a friend who knows of somebody who has a bungalow. They're Parsis and they have a bungalow on Malabar Hill. I got access to that bungalow. I spent half a day with them. I spoke to them. What do they do? Like, you know, what's their daily routine? They had this beautiful dining room and they said, we open this only when guests come. And then she gave me access to the dining room, the kind of collectibles they had, their culture, their, daily practices, the way they keep the house, what they eat, what are the traditional food items that you see on the table? Like, you know, how in a Gujarati's house you go, you'll have your achar, you'll have like this mirchi as your center table. Like, you know, the small nuances, the elements, the kind of fabrics that were used throughout the house, you know, the curtains, the drapes, upholsteries, tablecloth. It was an opulent space. So I could very well relate it to Homi. Though we had a book, there's a coffee table book which has photos of what Mehrangir looked like and the props and furniture of Mehrangir. But we never really got to see Mehrangir on the whole. So basis, you know, the research that I had done, basis the photograph that we had of Mehrangir and some pictures of Homi Baba, we kind of put together everything and then had our own version of what it is.
Now let's come to Ye Meri Family. Now that's in a house.
Right.
It's a lived-in house. It belongs to a different class of society, if you can say. Now what are the challenges there? How did you...
So Ye Meri Family was, the entire show was in this one house based in the 90s. So I've lived in that period. I know exactly, what school life was, what college life was. So it was easy to relate to and easy to understand the requirement of what the show needs. Every prop, every piece of electronic, and it had to be working. Bummer. We wanted a computer, like the old big dabba computer, to be working. Props like mixies, Walkmans, radios, televisions, all to be working. Big challenge. Like the computer was actually sourced from Surat. I knew somebody who said, I have a working computer, and we got it from there. Then they have the coolers, and which is such a northern thing. Like, you know, obviously we are showing Jaipur, but in Bombay you don't get those water coolers. So our EP was going to Jalandhar, so he got it from there. So, you know, everything. I had a friend who had her in-laws' place that was kind of under wraps for almost 20 years. That was a biggest place where we found most of the props. So we got a lot of stuff for the kitchen, we got a lot of stuff for the living room, the decoratives, all of that. There's a painting in the show that I have made when I was probably when I was in school that time. And now this was the only space. You're going to come back to the curtains again and again and again. We ensured that they were washed 3 times before we put it up. You know, just to get that washed, aged feel. Every bedsheet, every piece of cloth, every napkin, every hand towel, everything was washed multiple times to ensure that it doesn't look fresh, it doesn't look unused.
You know, when you spoke about getting things like coolers and mixies and all of that. Now, when you want to source, for example, a mixie from the 90s, now somebody's given it to you in spick and span condition. Now you need to make it look.
Yeah. So
whose job is that in that team?
It's exactly our jobs. But so I'll ask my setting boy.
So does the art director do that, or the
No. So that's usually I'll tell my setting boy isko thoda. So also the thing is, every utensil that we have used, I've actually bought new utensils, given it to people and asked them for old utensils, because the shine of steel is
Right.
different
Correct.
when it's like used for 5 years versus a brand new
Right.
steel utensil.
Yeah.
So we've actually gone and exchanged things. Like the spoons, every single thing in that house was ensured that it's used, it's aged. Switches, if you go near a switchboard, like, so we would take, like, maida, atta in a hand and like ensure that the switchboards have all of those dust, like, the atta ka dust, ketchup somewhere, something,
How do you
and
learn
wipe it off.
How do you learn how to age these things? I can understand a curtain, but like a mixer or something.
Because when you enter somebody's kitchen, like if you enter a middle class kitchen, you will realize all of that. Like, you're in a bathroom, you see a mirror, you will have the bindi marks. Even if you don't have bindi, you will have the bindi marks. And yeah.
Let's come to one of my favorite films now, Manorama 6 Feet Under. We're talking about a gritty film which was made in 2006, 15, 17 years back. That was also the period when, we had the Kashyaps and the Dibakar Banerjees who came with a different school of cinema that they were presenting to us. Tell us about how you created the world in...
It was shot in places like Jhunjhunu and Churu,
Right.
which is almost 3.5-4 hours from Jaipur.
Right.
So everything that we needed, anything that needed to be sourced from a bigger city, we had to like drive to Jaipur to get it. Otherwise, the Jhunjhunu and Churu markets were relatively small. But I think the authenticity of the film comes because everything was locally sourced. So right from Abhay Deol's house, it was not a set, it was an actual house, but it was just like a empty house, which we had to dress and prop it up. And it was in the PWD quarters. So we did go visit a few homes around and see how they were done, like, how people decorated their personal space, what were the elements that were commonly used during those times. But again, everything was wherever required, we had to tone down things. And I just think the brief was to keep it as real and as natural. The moment art stands out, the moment you know that, this is good art direction.
That's exactly what I asked in the previous question.
It's not nice. Like, it should look like, you don't know what, ye aise hi tha ki ye kiya aisa. Like, that way.
Would you do a show like, a challenging show like, or a film like Rocket Boys back to back, or would you want to go from...
Ideally not, but...
not only in terms of workload, but in terms of creativity.
Yeah, because of creativity, I really not want to do the same thing. Like, I would love to do a Mughal Azam now, like, just go back in the period, or just create, like, do this misty Sanjay Leela Bhansali kind of dreamy sets. We're going to talk about the Pokhran exterior. Pokhran exterior was shot in Rajasthan, Raisar. We were there for 7 days setting up the exterior, and that was quite challenging with natural winds and making that hole, that the pit for the trolley and the bomb shaft. We wasted 2 days in kind of digging the hole, and then third day realized that this is not going to hold itself. So we finally had to make the metal structure that kind of helped us create the access to the bomb shaft, for the trolley to go in. Even for the exterior, we were right in the middle of pandemic. There were only 2 vendors who agreed to supply us with the military fabric that we needed for the tents.
What references did you have of the exterior?
Actually, we had no reference of that particular experiment that we had done. Even if you try to look online there was no visual reference. There are written descriptions, but there's no visual reference of this at all. So we practically just had to refer to, general military base setups and military camps, what kind of army setups we could have, because it was a disguise operation.
Okay. And so then now let's move to the bomb shaft.
By the time we got to making the bomb shaft, we don't have the money, neither do we have time to shoot it. So while we made the bomb shaft, we weren't even sure whether it's going to be shot or not. But yeah, we were so tight in budget that we've actually created the entire bomb shaft, the tunnel, along with the bomb, everything is made in thermocol. There was no really reference of how deep it went, how deep was the tunnel, what was it. So we just, with the help of Abhay and Harshveer, we just kind of orchestrated a walk through the characters with the actors and see that what is the minimum distance required for them to walk towards the bomb.
There's a great video of you taking the lotus and walking it and then popping it into
so that I was trying to show it to the person who was guiding us, making that does this look correct? Is this how it's supposed to work? And they said, yes, this is just fine.
But it looks a bit like a football.
It was supposed to be a football.
Really?
Yeah. So if you read the description, it's written, it's like a football.
Wow.
That's the exact description that it gave.
So then that's the bomb aspect of it,
Yeah.
right? And then now another bit that featured heavily was the control room.
The same set, we just used the outer body of it in Jaipur. And then we recreated it not once but twice in Bombay. I think the biggest challenge for us was there are only 2 or 3 kind of toggles and switches that we can use that match the period that we are showing.
Correct.
So that kind of restricts and limits us. These days you have the mirchi, the rice lights, but earlier you used to have those cap lights for weddings.
Correct.
So we just started taking the caps and putting them because they looked more natural than reflectors and the bulbs that we were getting as part of the panel. So we had to do a couple of those things, and then most of the switches came in like these bright yellow and red and green colors. So we had to first go paint them all black or silver or chrome and then put them.
Was the electrical aspect of it challenging when you had to shoot it in the deserts?
Yeah, so desert was just the exterior. So thankfully we didn't get into, because location we had to walk 1 kilometer to reach where we are shooting. So desert was actually a tough location for us to reach.
No, the reason I asked you about the switches is because in one of the scenes, like the light goes off, you lose power.
Right.
And we were like a bunch of 6-7 actors that everyone had to do some activity. Nikhil sir was like, hey, do something. So I turned around and I checked one switch, and then Shagun comes in running saying, bro, you can't touch that switch. So I'm like, why? He gave me a reason for it. He gave me a technical reason for it. That's why I asked, how authentic was it? Because he told me, dude, how can you touch that button? I'm like, oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I had to do something. So I just did it.
Oh, maybe because it was the initiator button or something. Yeah, that was the button that was to go on.
Right.
How much was VFX and how much did you all actually...
I think the blast was real, but the area it covered, the aerial view, when they show the aerial view, so all that was VFX. Yeah, it's been expanded. They were there on set almost every day since we started set up, just to kind of figure what goes into the blast, what material they would need from us. So they needed this dummy hole that they wanted us to help them create. So as and wherever they need any help, we were just there to provide them.
Thank you so much for your time, Meghna. It was great picking your mind on this particular aspect of filmmaking. Production design is something that I really, really pay attention to. So it was great to get these insights from you. I've learned a lot of things. So thank you
so much
making the time to have this conversation. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you and goodbye. And
Cut!